Activate the transport beam.
As you wish, Skeletor.
Hello toy fans, my name is Chris, you're watching Chasing 80s Toys and this is another Masters of the Universe Origins video. In the previous video you saw me unboxing the 4 figures from Wave 4 that I bought at Old School Toys. And today we're gonna take a closer look at these 4 figures when they come out of the packaging. But before we do that, let's have one more look at that amazing artwork on the back of the cards. The artwork is done by great artists, in that same style we got back in the 80s with the vintage. And I like to think most of us kids in the 80s could spend hours and hours in the toy stores looking at this artwork when deciding on which figure to pick next for our collection. Now it's time to open these cards and take a closer look at the figures that are part of Wave 4 released by Mattel in 2021.
A wise choice, if not a brave one.
And of course there is a new mini-comic for Wave 4. So we get the same mini-comic with each of these 4 figures. And what I think is really cool is that all the figures from each wave are featured in the mini-comic for that wave. So we get to see Hordak, Ninjor, Tri-Klops and Stratos in this mini-comic. What we don't have is the balloons with the text. At least in my country they are not released that way. Now here's something new I haven't seen with previous waves. A little note is added this time. It describes for each figure which parts you can remove, and that's for the play feature of mixing and matching your action figures, creating your own unique Masters of the Universe.
You don't recognize it, do you, Beast Man?
But now let's go back to the 4 figures that make up Wave 4. And I think each and every one of them looks spot on. All of them have that 80s vintage vibe. And each of them comes equipped with a few accessories. And by adding those accessories, you get something like this. And this is how they look when they're all geared up. Let's go over a few of the play features. Of course, the articulation is a big bonus with these figures over the vintage. You can get so much more poses out of these guys.
Tri-Klops, master of vision.
As far as the action features go on these guys, Tri-Klops is the only one that really has one. And it's the same cool gimmick we got back in the 80s with the vintage.
Everything's spinning. I can't see.
And what's really cool about Ninjor is that this time he can carry his weapons on his back. You can carry his nunchucks and either his bow or his sword on his back. With Hordak back in the 80s, the cape was made of plastic. This time the cape is made of some flexible rubber, and so is the little bat that sits on his hand. The only figure that seems to be empty-handed here is Stratos. I think it would have been really cool if Mattel would have added like a staff to this figure.
Just what does that staff do, Stratos?
This.
The only negative so far is that this is the first time I encountered a bit of a bad paint job, and it's with Stratos. You can see on his head there's a little bit of blue in places where it shouldn't be. And of course it's always fun to compare how these new Origins figures look with their counterparts from the 80s.
Well done, Majestra. Yes, very entertaining.
To sum it all up, Mattel has done a real good job again with Wave 4. Now there were a few imperfections with the paintwork on Stratos, but overall these figures looked spot on. Again, there were no loose joints, there was amazing artwork, there's a mini comic, and personally I'm not really bothered that there's no text in the mini comics, because so far the pluses outweigh the negatives that I can find on this toy line. I will be definitely buying more of Origins toys in the future. And that's all for today's video. See you on the next one for more 80s nostalgia. Bye bye!